Hey, Snowana, the first video in a while. So thought I'd talk a bit more about like what I've talked about a bit before, just like coder psychology, coding approaches, coding archetypes, this sort of thing. I wanted to talk. I mean, best thing to do for obviously is to talk about a certain tendency that I myself have, and then just go from there, right? So I have definitely. I don't know if this is. I'm sure this term is already in use in the vernacular of coding and programmers, but I'm a bit of a lone wolf coder at times. What does this mean? I mean, lone wolf in general means that I value doing a lot of work. I mean, as a person in general, that's I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I'm very independent. I don't need to rely on other people that much. Well, yes and no, actually. I mean, sometimes like I've had support from my parents, I've got a good group of friends, a lot of artists, of people, creative people. But I do choose my friends very selectively, if you know what I mean. Like I have plenty of acquaintances, but true friends, probably about 6, maybe a bit more, but yeah, proper, true, deep level core friends who have remained friends since I've been 20 or something, probably 8, maximum of 8 people really. But anyway, what do I mean by lone wolf coder? I mean a coder who will probably in some respects, especially if I'm prototyping, I actually prefer working alone. I get off on working alone. If I'm too constrained in a project immediately, if it's like something prototypal, it will actually just somewhat annoy me to have to work to certain styles, do things in a certain way, etc, etc. Now obviously if you're working in a team, that's actually a logical thing to do, to work to a certain code style, to work to certain patterns, because you'll have to work in a team. You're working in a team with other people, and if everybody's writing code in 10 different styles, it will become spaghetti, which, as I'm sure you're aware, if you're any awareness of coding, is just basically when the architecture becomes sprawling, it becomes confusing, and you basically make work for yourself overall if you are a programmer and you start making spaghetti. And I've done it. I've done it myself. Every coder, I think, at some point will have made a spaghetti per code base, which is where becoming aware of architecture and software engineering in general is actually important, because it helps to code better, it helps to code cleaner, it helps to code in a way that's likely to be easier for anyone else to work on as well. And this is always something, even though, like I say, I am a bit of a lone wolf coder, I do always make sure to document, not over the top, but to document, so at least if somebody, especially because of freelance and contract law, if the code gets passed over to somebody else to maintain it in the future, which happens all the time, you want to at least give the person who's going into that code base a little bit of a helping hand, right? Like to justify certain decisions being made in places, yada yada yada. Working in teams though is fine, but I don't mind working in teams. It's more that, like I said, for the initial, if I'm doing day-to-day routine work and working in a team, it's fine. It's actually a good thing. You can develop interpersonal skills. If you're a bit of an antisocial nerd like me, that actually helps my personality develop, which I have. I mean, I have a personality, but it's not one that would fit in very easily with a corporate environment. I'm a bit of a joker. I'm a bit of probably in some respects I can be a bit edgy. My humour's edgy. I appreciate edgy humour. My favourite comics like Bill Hicks, George Carlin, Doug Stanhope. Now, they all joke about very controversial subjects, but if I'm in a business environment, some people will get that, maybe 20 or 10% of people will be on the same wavelength as me, of this sort of cynical, jaded sense of humour. But a lot of people will just find it offensive. But there's no real validity in respects to it, them finding it offensive to anything really, but it's probably not appropriate to joke around too much in a workplace environment. I do like sort of more punk rock environments, to be honest. I like working in environments where there isn't so much of a constrained filter on humour or anything else, but it's unrealistic to expect that, to be honest, in a lot of environments. I still am a sort of stubborn punk. I grew up with punk, I grew up with skateboarding culture, and in a lot of ways I'm still like, my basic values come from an appreciation of that background. Street culture in a lot of ways. Like, I am a middle class white kid from Cheshire as well. Like, I'm not delusional, but I'm of that generation that grew up with NWA, Rage Against the Machine. We're millennials. We have this almost like rebellious streak culturally programmed into us, even with new metal or something like that, which now seems a bit cringe. But like Korn, Marilyn Manson, all these we had rock stars. Like, we had rock stars back in our day. I know we still have them now, but it's more, I guess. Like, I don't know if there's any Zoomers. Who is the rock music even happening anymore? Like, answer below. I'd like to listen to some new music anyway. Like, I genuinely do. I'm open-minded to music, but like, it seems a lot of it these days is coming across as an old man now. Like, auto-tuned vocals, and I just don't get it. Like, I mean, I love old school hip hop and that, but like, a lot of the new stuff is just like, it's all bling and chiz and stuff, and it's like, that's not what hip hop was originally about. Anyway, I'm not gonna go round on lone wolf coding. So I think, like I said, for myself, because this is a good place to approach this from, I tend to be a bit of a, like, you can see from my presentation, the way I present myself, I probably do think of myself as a bit of a rock star programmer, which is an egotistical approach in some respects. And it's certainly not true, because I'm always learning things and I'm always trying to get better. And there are times even where I just forget how to do simple things. Like honestly, like, if I'm a bit out of practice, I have to go and Google, sometimes even CSS styling, or I just forget. Like, well, with CSS I'm sort of alright with it now. I've got most of that embedded in here, but definitely sometimes for JavaScript. But JavaScript is actually quite, even though the fundamentals are fairly simple, it has a lot of tricks to Rubik. So often, and the number of libraries and everything else. So that reading documentation is pretty essential if you are a JS dev or anything like that. Not to mention you're using the libraries, using TypeScript, using React, and the myriad of different ways that you can do state management in React. I mean, I do like React sometimes. Like, I think for certain projects as well, it's brilliant. Basically, I think React, for what it was actually originally designed for, which is single web, progressive web apps and single page applications, can be really good. I just think that sometimes there is a scope in a React project where if you wanted to do it on your own, like, good luck. Like, if you're talking like a huge, complicated CRUD app or something, even a CRUD app, with like a massive complex backend, do not go into such a thing if you're mostly a front-end dev. And this brings me to my second point, actually. It is important to learn how to work with other people. So, like, if you're more front-end focused like me, learn how to work with back-end engineers. Learn how to talk their language. Like, I can do a little bit of back-end. Like, I can know my way around in my SQL database. I'm sure I could just set up a simple Postgres or whatever. I've experienced on AWS with database backends using SSQL, MySQL, all this sort of thing. Am I an expert? No. And the thing is, with backend, with relational databases, all this sort of thing, you really need an expert, because you make some mistakes, you will lose data. If you make huge mistakes, you're opening yourself up for vulnerabilities, SQL injection, and all that sort of thing, hackers to steal data. It's an area where, if you don't have someone who's incredibly anal about protecting, like putting measures in place, then you could end up losing money as a company, like thousands of billions, millions even if you're a big enough company. So it's pretty important. But I'm more of an artistic developer. I'm drawn to, I like flashy things. I like graphics. I'm just completely drawn to the graphics. I mean, I think a lot of my interest in computer programming basically comes from video games anyway. So I'll just stop this now. So it makes sense that I'll be drawn to the graphical. I like a little bit of a visual kick. That's what keeps me doing this thing, But the weakness of this actually for myself is I get distracted too easily. Like I do a lot of, you'll see on this channel, I've done a lot of projects. Some of them have been finished. Some of them have been ambitious, way too ambitious. Some of them have been, I've lost momentum on them. Once it reaches a certain point. The last project that I probably lost momentum on a bit, I may well revisit it, but it may just go good to the graveyard, was Nexus Necronomicon, which I've actually did, Nexus Necronomicon was this Lovecraftian interactive fiction game in 3 years, designing and developing it for a series of 4 or 5 months. And I actually got like a basic branching system where I can integrate it with Twine. But the thing is, like, trying to balance that, I started contracting as well, doing proper work, like I got paid for a lot. And those lone wolf projects I was working on before just became too really hard to maintain and develop, to be honest. Solar Gold Rush I'm still working on. That is my main side project still. Like I'm doing like little bits and bobs as well, Alien Rabbit, but it's more like, basically it's just restructuring code I've already written and scenes and play canvas for that one. But I mean the good thing though about being a lone wolf programmer basically though is you really do get off on the experimental. So like I've created a lot of experimental apps. You can go to my GitHub Dr. Noir and you'll see a bunch of them. Like they're not exactly finished products, but I've got data visualization tools. I've got these hacky little projects which I've done, which people can use as a starting base. This is always a good thing anyway in coding. If code only exists because people share it. Coders only become coders because they share code. That's just a fact. Like, I mean, people who don't know that are not coders, really. Nobody has ever written from scratch, from memory, without referencing anything like a 2,000 line. Well, probably, no, people can, let me correct that. People can write 2,000 line, serious applications probably without looking at documentation. I'm sure I could if I wanted to, but it's not really what coding is about. Coding, you will always have to refer to an objective standard of sorts. There are different ideas of how to approach code, or different methodologies, different ways of doing things. I'm rambling a bit now. Going back to the main point. I think you just have to, if you're like me and you're a bit of a lone wolf coder and you like going off on these crazy tangents, the only thing to reel in sometimes is you just have to be personable with people, which I can do that, like I'm not that bad. And learn about reel in your ego as well. So basically, don't let your ego get the better of you, because I think, especially if you're a lone wolf coder, you are driven to push yourself further and further and further. But it can come at the cost of self-isolating too much, basically. I mean, like COVID wasn't that difficult for me because I just dived into loads of projects. Like, I was in Russia at the time, but like that was fine. It was just like I just really did a load of game jams, did a load of other things. It was just me and my girlfriend at the time, just staying in and watch Netflix and I would code. That was it. And it was pretty much the same routine as always anyway. Like, maybe a bit less going out to restaurants and stuff for a while. I had it easy really otherwise because I was in Russia at the time instead of the UK where I currently reside. Anyway, I'll probably leave the video at that. I hope there's something interesting in there. What are your thoughts on different types of programmers? In fact, if you have any suggestions for a type of coder, like there's more buzzwords that go around, like Ninja, the coding rockstar. Like, I guess someone was like really detail orientated on specific niche areas. Give me some words to riff off below. I'll do a little video with some thoughts on each. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Like and subscribe. Obviously, like I'm just a coder, noir nerd. I do tutorials. Most of what I'm doing at the minute is really code overviews of projects. I will get back to tutorials, guys. I know you're probably like watching this like, just do some tutorials, man. I will do. Like, it's just time. Like, I don't get paid for tutorials. I don't get paid for it. I'm trying to maintain my side projects and work a full-time job. And up until very recently, I was also working a part-time job on top. It's just too much for one human being to do. But like, I have been experimenting with a few different tutorials, but just nothing's really tying together at the minute. I will do it, I promise, some point. And I know people like my Play Canvas tutorials, and I know that they've got a lot from them. Even the Coppercube, like entry-level game design engine tutorials. So if I get some inspiration, I will post some more. Like, usually what I usually approach my tutorials is I usually just do something myself, figure out how to do it just in work or freelance work or contracting or work or whatever, and then I'll just turn it into a tutorial. But anyway, with that, like, peace, and keep deving, keep coding, keep having fun. That's the main part, really. In a bit.